the key to USC season in 2025. And if Lincoln Riley wants to have all the pressure taken off, they'll be bubbling up in Champaign, Illinois.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network. Your first listen every day, whether you are watching this show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, pick your platform. It's always free, and I always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. USC season, they're trying to rebound off a 7-6 2024, 8-5 2023. 2025 has to be a big year. So USC's season will be determined when they travel to play Illinois, Champaign. That'll be game number 5. Joel Klatt, one of the better college football analysts out there. He works for Fox. He also has his own podcast show that he hosts. I think for the most part, he's been pretty fair and balanced with his USC criticism. I mean, look, there are times where, when you question his sincerity, is he being disingenuous, especially when it's, has anything to do with his Colorado Buffaloes. But I think for the most part, Joel is, he calls balls and strikes pretty evenly. He's not extending the strike zone up and down or left and right. He just shoots, he pitches right down the middle. And I'm good with that. He said Lincoln Riley's coaching seat isn't, I've said it, and he's kind of echoing the comment. Coach Riley's seat isn't necessarily hot right now, but it is getting a little warm. Just to kind of, remind everybody, through Coach's first 3 years at USC, the Trojans are 26-14. But they started off year 1, 11-3, 8-5, 7-6. That's not the right direction to be going. You would rather start 7-6, go 8-5, and then boom, year 3, you're 11-3. Nevertheless, here we are. We're heading into year 4. So Joel Klatt, he picked out the pivotal point for Coach Riley and for this USC team in 2025. And I've kind of talked about this before on the show, but it's that game against Illinois. Let's not forget the Fighting Illini. They're coming off their best year since USC beat them in the Rose Bowl back in 2007. Remember when Ray Mayaluga and everybody else was kicking Juice Williams' butt all over the field? So this is what Joel said on his podcast. Quote, Lincoln Riley is firmly in the category of, is this going to work? We have seen it work once. In that year, they almost went to the college football playoff. That was his first year. And yet we look up and it's like last year was incredibly underwhelming. Riley's tenure started off gangbusters, but he's coming off these 2 underwhelming seasons. I will say they had a good finish last year. I do think that there's some things that you can get excited about. He continued. They won 3 of their last 4 games, including their bowl win over Texas A&M. When Riley was hired, it was widely viewed as a home run. I said it. Others said it. And I think that's still true. This is an elite coach. Look at what he's done during the course of his career. He's an elite coach. End quote. Look, I've said it on the show numerous times. USC has no excuse. When I say numerous, I'm talking about the upcoming schedule. There is absolutely no excuse that you can come up with, not even injuries, for USC not opening the season 3-0. Missouri State, Georgia Southern at home, on the road at Purdue. Now you're coming home, you're going to host Michigan State. That's my trap game. I call that as one of the trap games this year. Jonathan Smith, he's got Sparty. They're still in rebuild mode right now. I think they're going to be better in 2025 than they were last year. Jonathan Smith teams usually take incremental steps, and then all of a sudden, boom, they arrive. Like I said, I have the Michigan State game in the Coliseum as a trap game because it's 1 week before USC gets back on the road to go take on Illinois in Champaign. So Joel pointed out, Illinois on the road, it's going to be vital for Coach Riley and USC. There is a chance for the Trojans to get on a bit of a run. Quote. Okay, so you look at the schedule and you're like, all right, well, where's that moment? Where's the pressure moment? And it's easy to look at the biggest games. But there's this sneaky game on the road in September that is vital for USC because I think it tells you everything you need to know about what they could potentially be at the top end and what would potentially be at the bottom end. So where does the pressure really ratchet up for Coach Riley? It's the road game in September at Illinois. That's the moment because think about it. USC really should be 4-0 when they go to Champaign. I think Illinois is going to be a 4-0 team at that point, likely in the top 10. USC might be sniffing the top 10. It's going to be a first tough 4-game stretch that's going to go a long way to determine how the season goes and how the fan base feels about Lincoln. Because look at what that 4-game stretch is. You've got Illinois on the road. Then you've got Michigan at home at the Coliseum. Then you're at Notre Dame. And then you're at Nebraska. If you lose to Illinois, well, now I don't have a lot of faith that you're going to go beat Nebraska in Lincoln. I don't have a lot of faith that you're going to go to Notre Dame and like traveling to Nebraska. I don't know. I don't know what that means for USC. End quote. So a lot of question marks from Joel. I tried to read it verbatim, and it's like if you win in Illinois, you're setting the bar up here. You lose, and now you're back down here in the middle, and who knows, you could be way down here. You can all of a sudden start having those flashbacks. How did USC lose to Minnesota? How did USC lose to Maryland? And we'll even throw Washington in there. USC lost those games on the road. So Joel is right. If this whole Lincoln Riley thing is going to work out, USC has to be 5-0 this year. The schedule sets up perfectly. Coach Riley has to show, the team is developing. He has to show they're picking up right where they left off last year with Jaden Mayabat as their starting quarterback. They went 3-1 down the stretch. He also has to, he has to show those recruits in USC's number 1 recruiting class, the 2026 class. He has to make sure those recruits still believe in the vision, that he sold them on, that they're making the right choice. If both teams are undefeated when they play each other, you're going to have Illinois they'll probably be inside the top 10. USC will be somewhere, maybe top 10, sniffing right around the outside, depending on how impressive they look in those first 4 wins. But you're going to have 2 top 10 teams roughly. Both of them are going to be looking to make their season special. USC and Coach Riley need to be able to pop the bubbly in Champaign. They have to lead with the win. Winning on the road against Purdue, that's going to tell us nothing. Even if USC leaves there with a 63-3 win. Let me remind everybody, Purdue is anticipated to be battling Northwestern for that 18th spot in the Big Ten Conference. There's 18 teams. However, coming home with that win against a top 10 Fighting Illini squad, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Coach Riley. It's going to take a lot of pressure off the team. They're going to be able to come home with that win and say, all right, when do we get Michigan? We got to wait. We got to plan. Let's play tomorrow. And they got to wait a week. So you got Illinois, then Michigan, at Notre Dame. You got Nebraska in there as well. That game in Illinois is going to make or break USC's season. Would it kill the season if they came back 4-1? No. but you're looking for that momentum changer, that thing where that game where you say, all right, they're for real. They won on the road in a tough environment with a team that's returning a lot of players, their starting quarterback, and they're doing it against a well-coached team. Brent Bielema, considered a good coach. So Coach Riley is now looking to put a little notch on his belt, take that pressure off, come back 5-0, get ready for Michigan. So yeah, USC season, it'll be determined by one game. And that game will be against the Fighting Illini. All right, 2 more segments to go. In this next segment, we're going to talk about, and I'm going to pick a player from each position group. You're going to say, where did he come from? You'll understand where I'm going when we come back. There is nothing like the NBA playoffs. Intensity, buzzer beaters, fans losing their mind that when their team loses or when their team wins. If you've never been to an NBA finals or an NBA playoff game, you got to experience live. You got to do it in person. Watching on TV, you got to go do it live. If you want that experience, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games, like game 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the finals. Did you know that prices actually drop the closer you get to tip-off? And you get these killer last-minute deals. Game Time gives you this panoramic seat view. There's no surprise views. Excuse me, there's no surprise fees. There's no surprise views either. You're going to know exactly what you're getting when you buy it. And that's why Game Time is a total game changer. There's a ton of reasons to like Game Time. I always give you my favorite 2. Here they are again. Like I said, you get to see exactly what your seat view is going to look like before you check out. And with the Game Time guarantee, this is also really cool. You'll know you're getting the best deal, because if you find a better price in the same row and section, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. And you all know I'm a huge college football fan, but if you love the NFL as well, check this out. The NFL schedule, it's been dropped. You know who's playing who, where, when. You can now start planning ahead. Yeah, start looking for certain games to buy tickets for. You'll find great seats for NFL games for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms are going to apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. As I mentioned before the break, one player from each position group that has the potential to pop in 2025. A guy that's just going to kind of come out of nowhere. Opportunity's going to knock and say, hey, here's Johnny. I'm going to start on the opposite side of the ball. I'm going to start with the easiest position to choose. Quarterback. Jaden Mayava is QB1. He is the starter. Husan Longstreet is the future. I don't think Husan Longstreet's going to be the guy to pop in 2025. Not because I don't think he's talented, but like we were talking about in the first segment, the pressure's on Coach Riley this year. I think Sam Heward is going to be the first guy Coach Riley turns to. He's a former 5-star quarterback when he was coming out of high school. He should know, and look, Sam knows this is his last hurrah, so to speak. So if for whatever reason Coach Riley has to turn to the backup quarterback, if Sam Heward gets a chance, he might just hold on to that spot for the rest of the year. Do you agree? What about a running back? I think everybody anticipates Waymon Jordan, Brian Jackson, Eli Sanders. They're going to get the bulk of the work. However, do not forget the name Harry Dalton. Do not forget the name. He's going to showcase his abilities in the early part of the season. Remember, you get 4 games during the season, and you can still preserve your red shirt. and you can play those games at any time. Play game 1, game 5, 9, game 12. Doesn't matter. You get to play up into 4. You can play up to 4 games, and it doesn't affect your redshirt status. So that's why I think in those first 3 games specifically, I think you're going to see some of the younger guys get an opportunity. Harry Dalton at running back being one of them. USC is going to have to decide. In fact, I'm wondering, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there as a side note, is USC, do they want any redshirt players in today's football environment? Just a question. I mean, you want to have a few guys redshirt because you know they just don't have the opportunity to play this year. But because of the way the rosters turn over, how much do redshirts really help going forward in the future? And like I said, you've got Sean Alston, you've got Deshaun Rideau showing up next year. Harry Dalton was heavily pursued by Alabama all the way up to signing day. So that's why I'm picking this guy. At wide receiver, there's a lot of candidates for the number 3 and number 4 roles. You've got Zacharias Williams, the transfer from Utah. And you got Prince Strawn, the transfer from Boise State. Both of those guys have number 1 wide receiver type of experience at Utah and Boise, respectively. Coach Whittingham said he was going to be our number 1 wide receiver if we're playing a game tomorrow. So, yeah. I think after Jacoby and Mackay, those are probably going to be your top 4. Xavier, DJ Jordan, he arrived with the accolades. He's going to be battling for one of those spots as well. But here's the guy I want you to keep an eye on. His name is James Johnson. He was an early enrollee. He took part in spring camp. He's out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, I believe. He's one of those under the radar type of guys that I could see finding a role in the slot receiver, playing slot receiver. When I say under the radar, I just mean you don't hear his name frequently. But keep in mind, I mean, this is why I think he has a chance. Georgia and Ohio State wanted him. Okay. Both of those programs have a pretty good eye for evaluating talent. That's why I don't look at the stars. I look at the programs who want you. And if we're talking about positions specifically, Ohio State, they know how to eye wide receiver talent. Georgia's trying to get into that game. Vance Stafford's a good receiver, and so is James Johnson. Tight end, Lake McCree, Walker Lyons, they're going to be the tight ends used the most in 2025. But Walter Matthews needs to be ready because you got Mark Bowman showing up next year. And he's going to get his opportunities. Walter has to carve out a role this year so he can show Mark Bowman the ropes. Lake is going to be out of eligibility. And before I can say Joey Olson, I need to see him block someone before I can jump on that bandwagon. But USC is going to have plenty of tight ends to play around with, to distribute the ball to use in the game plan, whether it's blocking, whatever. Walter, you look at him again, he's 6'7", 260 pounds, 39-inch vertical. Some say he should maybe consider offensive tackle. He's a great athlete. You want to create that mismatch with him. He's got to pop in 2025. He has to. As far as the offensive line, I'm not going to pick one guy for each position along the line. That's just too many. And look, if that happens, if 5 guys are popping on the offensive line, then USC is probably not in a good place because all the starters were hurt or weren't performing, which is worse. So Tobias Raymond is your presumptive starting right tackle. Justin Tauanu, he's pushing hard. He's going to be that 6th man, that guy who you can plug in wherever you need him to plug in. Maybe not center, but we know he can play both tackle spots, and we know he can play interior offensive line. He can play guard as well. So Justin is going to be that next offensive lineman. You're going, all right, we got to find a spot for him. Let's get to the other side of the ball on defense. Excuse me. Look, everyone anticipates the usual suspects are going to have a great season on the defensive line. And I'm talking about, Anthony Lucas, Cam Fountain, Braylon Shelby. You got the 2 transfers, Keyshawn Silver, Jaw Jarrett. You got Kobe Pepe returning, Jade Abasiri. Devin Tompkins. He's going to end up being that guy everyone says. Where did he come from? Where was he? Did he transfer to USC? No, he just put in his time, put in the work, and he's been developing. I have a feeling Devin is going to have a monster year. Coaching staff could not stop talking about him during spring camp as well as after spring camp. And if Coach Henney and Coach New are high on you, and Coach Lynn, they probably got big things planned for you. Linebacker, easy, right? Desmond Stevens, he flashed last year, showed you what he can do, in pass coverage. Now he's moving into a starter's role. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Desmond Stevens is the correct answer. Someone was saying, well, what about Jaden Walker, the other linebacker from Michigan? Okay, possible. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those Jalen Smith types of situations. Anthony Beavers. He's one of those guys who stuck around. He stuck it out. Remember, he started off at USC during the Clay Helton regime. He could have went other places. He could have gotten paid through NIL and jumped in the transfer portal. He didn't. He's finishing what he's starting. And he's now playing linebacker. And if you look at any of his workout videos, he doesn't look like a defensive back at all anymore. He looks like a full-fledged linebacker. So that's why I'm giving myself an extra bonus player to choose from. At safety, you've got Kamari Ramsey, you've got Bishop Fitzgerald, you've got Christian Pierce is considered the next man up. Remember the name Marquise Gallegos. Okay, second-year player. I love his size. I love his aggressiveness. Keep going back. I watched his film when he was at Sierra Canyon. Dude likes to put some hurt on you. So I don't know why. I just have this feeling that he could be that guy who takes that next step. And then at cornerback, look, if I'm looking for a veteran, I'm going to go back down that Jalen Smith road, that Anthony Beavers Jr. Give me Prophet Brown. Again, another guy who's finishing what he started. Great athlete, too. I always thought he'd be a great running back, but he's settled in at corner. And I think he's actually battling for one of the starting jobs. And if I want to go underclassmen, that's fine. Give me Isaiah Rubin, the cornerback from Los Alamitos High School. So there you go. Who do you think's going to pop? Give me a player that's kind of under the radar right now. No one's really anticipating him getting a lot of playing time, but if the opportunity knocks, who's walking through that door? One more segment to go. We know USC is considered Tailback U for a reason. I want to talk about some names some running backs that are underrated throughout USC history. On yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, I brought up USC's top 25 plays list that that myself and the rest of the WeAreSC.com crew compiled together. So when you're done watching this episode of Locked on USC, you can go back and watch yesterday's if you missed it, or head on over to WeAreSC.com. Read the list; it's kind of cool. But I thought about another list that I thought would have a ton of different answers. As I mentioned, USC is considered Tailback U. It's been a while since they've won a Heisman at the running back position, Reggie Bush. But these are your 4 Heisman winners that played running back. You have a total of 8 at USC. You got Mike Garrett, 1965, O.J. Simpson, 1968, Charles White, 1979, Marcus Allen, 1981. And believe me, there have been others who have deserved that award, specifically Ricky Bell. Maybe throw Anthony Davis in there. Heck, the only reason Lendale White never got an invite to New York because he was in the same backfield with Reggie Bush and Matt Weiner. Those two won it back-to-back years. However, the list of underrated Trojan running backs, I mean, it is long. It is illustrious. And I don't have enough time to name them all, but I'm going to throw out a handful of names to you. Like I said, this could take up more than one segment. And again, I hit up my my encyclopedia brothers. They helped me out with this. So some of the names they popped up with, some of them are mine. Do me a favor. Raise your hand. Who remembers number 21, Lynn Kane? He played fullback at USC. He was the guy blocking for Charles White's Heisman. Lynn Kane at USC ran for 1,358 yards, 11 touchdowns. He also had, let's see, what in 1978, he ran for 977 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is, I believe that number is still the most for a USC fullback. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, anybody. But I think Lynn Kane still holds that record. He was also the captain of that 1978 team that went on to beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl, 12-1. Yeah. Lynn Kane was a dude. He actually went on to have a really solid NFL career with the Atlanta Falcons, and I think he finished it up with the LA Rams for 1 year. So Lynn Kane, definitely one of the most underrated, underappreciated Trojan running backs. Way, way before Tim Davis, remember USC's offensive line coach? What does God want? God wants 4 yards. Well, Freddie Crutcher wore number 49 at USC, played running back. He was called 4-yard Fred. Even though he was still one of those 4 yards in a cloud of dust type of guy, he still, put up 2,815 yards during his time at USC. He was instrumental in USC's 16-7 upset win over number 1 Washington in 1984. So Freddie Crutcher definitely belongs on this list. I think he's still in the top 15 all-time rushing leaders for USC. I'm not sure what the cutoff is, but he's one of the top. Who remembers Ryan Knight, the running back from Riverside, Rubidoux High School in Riverside? Let me remind you, this young man in high school on 31 carries ran for over 500 yards in one game. Yeah, that's impressive. I don't care what the level of competition is. If one person runs for 500 yards in one game, you need to hook them up to an IV afterwards. He entered USC at a time when Tailback U was not that far in the past. Look, Charles White, 79, Marcus Allen, 81. And then you got Ryan Knight showing up in the 80s. He just never lived up to this billing. He never lived up to, and again, this is why I don't like the star system, because of all the hype. He never ran for more than 730 yards in the season at USC. So he was good, but just not what everyone anticipated. But I think he was underrated. Here's a guy, name doesn't come up often, really fast running back for USC. Back in the 70s. His name is Dwight Ford. In fact, he has 2 national championship rings. He was on the 74 squad. He was on the 78 squad. He was in the same backfield with a guy named Ricky Bell. I bring up Ricky Bell's name frequently and often because he is the guy that made me fall in love with the Cardinal and Gold. Ricky Bell is not underrated in any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely deserved the Heisman. Archie Griffin over there at Ohio State got it twice. That's because Ricky and Chuck Muncie, who was playing for Cal at the time, they were splitting the West Coast votes. Anyways, Ricky Bell, rest in peace. Thank you for making me a Trojan fan. Hey, how about this name? Herschel Dennis. Remember him? He had some injuries at USC. He also did some dumb stuff off the field. And he has his mom to thank because she literally came down to USC, begged Pete Carroll, please give my son one more chance. We have to keep him off the streets. And it was the best thing that ever happened to Herschel because he had a great year. But again, he was playing in the same backfield that had a couple of guys named Thunder and Lightning. This is when USC's dynasty was taken off. I know a lot of people remember Herschel Dennis fumbling the ball in that triple overtime game at Cal. Well, don't hold that against Hirsch. That guy, the guy who hit him, put a helmet right on the ball at the goal line. It was unfortunate. But yeah, Herschel Dennis, I think, is one of those underrated guys who played at USC. Let me ask this question. Does Petros Papadakis, does he belong on the list? I want to remind everybody, and I'm using his own words to describe himself. He looks like a stuffed sausage when he puts on spandex. He did that one time. I don't know why, but he did. He looked like a stuffed sausage. Before he broke his foot, dude was fast. Look, he had that long touchdown run called back for a block in the back that was on the other side of the field that had nothing to do with what was going on. But I don't know. Does Petros, does he deserve at least one flower? Ooh, here's one. How about Chauncey Washington? Remember him? Dude was a workhorse when he got his chance. 2007. Yep. Good dude. 2006. I have a couple of Texas guys. Remember DeLon Washington? Remember Sean Walters? Again, I can keep going, but I'm not because I'm out of time. I'm looking at the clock right now. Like I said, there's more, but now I need my everydayers. Okay. Participate. Hit me up in the comments section. If you're watching on YouTube, give me some of those underrated USC running backs throughout history. No time frame. You choose. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 1000s, 2000s. Want to go back further? Go for it. Let us know. All right. That's it for this episode of Locked On USC. Once again, thank you. I'm going to be here 5 times a week. It's the off season. I could be cutting the show down to 3 times a week if I wanted to. Not going to do it. I'm here for the dog work. All right. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. Oh, the Friday rant will be there. So, till the next episode, everyone, you know what to do.